Hello, folks. I am Mills.
I am Phil.
Yeah.
I got there first. I'm sorry.
Rude.
All right. So today we're going to talk about some significantly more divisive topics so that now that
your statement.
Yeah. So now that you guys have gotten a taste of how we are when we almost unanimously agree to begin with, like by default, without much deliberation. I mean, you got a little bit of that with the whole transgender thing last time in sports. I'm not even a sports fan. But
still pretty much end up in the same position. So
yeah.
If you didn't catch that episode, it's pretty nice.
It's pretty decent. It's a spicy meme.
It's pretty nice. We transitioned from one thing to another.
Anyway, in a more politically correct sense, we're going to start talking about some topics like the movie that's going to come out soon, like next year, the year after that. What's it called again? The Legend of...
Gregory?
No, The Legend of Mulan. A classic, timeless character that's loved by many people of our generation. I can't tell you how many birthday parties I went to in high school that were almost entirely people with pizza, wings, presents, cake, and Mulan. Just watching Mulan as a party.
And who can't forget that lovely, quiet, subtle musical piece? Let's get down to business!
To defeat the Huns! Yes, I love that song.
Yes, it's a very quaint song. It's fall asleep to it, especially, not quite in that lyrical sense. We modified it.
Uh-huh.
But Phil, basically, that movie is getting a lot of...
Flack.
Yes. Would you like to tell us why?
Well, originally, there was this crazy misconception based on a spec script. Not even a real script, like a script that was bought as a bouncing board for the project that people would then vary and base off of that script a completely different story in the same universe, potentially. So you may keep some of the same characters, you may keep the same setting, but very likely everything will be different in the final product because they'll have different writers working on it. And if there's anything I know about writers, it's that they love to leave their mark on things. So this spec script said, hey, let's put a white guy in as a romantic gesture for Mulan, and he can help her either wittingly or unwittingly to defeat the enemy that she must fight. And a lot of people were losing their crap over this, that fact that the original script, which was written by women to be a romantic film or a romantic whatever it was, it looked kind of like a play, but it was just a script. So it could have been either. I can't really differentiate between the two. I've only made scripts for film. So, funnily enough, people are like, it's sexist, it's racist. This guy that's potentially falling in love with Mulan is not only male,
he was white.
Wait, was Mulan a lesbian?
No.
Okay, then that throws out the whole sexist accusation, because if the character's straight,
then it makes sense to have a romantic lead that's male.
And she's female.
And she already, in every single story ever, has demonstrated an appreciation for men that is kind of romantically sided? I don't know, maybe.
So what do we got? We got racist, sexist, anything else?
Well, they said it was bigoted because white people didn't exist in that time period or something. They didn't exist in China during that time, I guess is what they mean.
It didn't exist in China, as I was going to say. What?
Yeah, no, I actually saw that argument made. I'm not going to bring up who said it.
The entirety of Europe at that point? But, white people apparently didn't exist.
1,500 years ago. You've got to understand, 1,500 years ago, white people didn't exist because that was before problems started in the 1700s.
That's interesting. We've done a hell of a lot of progress since then, considering we haven't been around for so long. But that's that's the point.
Well, funny enough, this movie was later proven, the minute it blew up, Disney came out and said, no, it's not like that. It hasn't been like that. We already have test footage and stuff based on what the final script actually is, and 2 men are writing it now. So immediately the focus has shifted. It's completely changed script. It has been for a long time. And that makes sense because it was a spec script. It was literally just a concept written by people who pitched it to Disney. Disney bought it and said, we're going to change it, but thank you for the original idea. And now it's probably not going to focus on a white guy. Disney completely destroyed that idea by saying, yes, it's all Asian cast. I mean, they didn't specify all Chinese cast, probably because there's going to be Mongols or Huns specifically, but Disney shut it down. Do you know why? Because these accusations that people were bringing up that were based on no substance whatsoever, who had no idea what it's like in the industry, who just had no clue what it means to have a spec script, were claiming that Disney was going to release the most misogynistic defiling of their childhood nostalgia of all time because they put a white guy in it.
Wow, if your life gets that effed up because of a live-action remake of Mulan that happens to have a white guy in it,
which it doesn't. It was just a potential to.
Yeah, then wow, I envy you because I have actual issues. But yeah, I mean, I can understand why people can get annoyed at having a white dude in it. Personally, I don't really see the issue because it is a movie. As long as the lead and primarily everybody that had a position of power, whether it be political in the army, happens to be a native of that area, China,
then it's more realistic.
Yeah, then it's realistic. If you want to sit there and kind of change things up, which Hollywood has done, there's been plenty of positions where it's primarily a white individual where they say, hey, let's put a black guy there. You know what? The male is the lead in 99% of the showings for this. Let's put a female. But the moment you sit there and put a white guy there, that's things get a little bit,
sketchy, dicey, risky.
So,
but it's not an American problem exclusively. The only people you see complaining about it are Americans. That's for sure, because we want diversity quotas. We want to believe that there are more people of a certain species, race. I'm sorry, I just keep remembering the fact that race is not even a real thing. It's a social construct. And I hate to say that word, but race isn't a scientific term. It's not. It's not science. It's one race, and that's the human race. And I'm not saying that from some mamby-pamby, peaceful, stylistic, I can use words to describe my beliefs. No, I mean, literally, in science, there's one race, and that's human. But aside from that, in China, in Japan, in Korea, they have a predominantly Asian population. And the majority of films that have source material like manga or comics or anything that also have white people and black people and Hispanic people, they use Asian characters to portray them anyway because there's an abundance of them. It's just easier to pick Asian people. And one of the most egregious, besides Ghost in the Shell, which I can't really talk so much about because it's not as big a deal. I mean, because there's robots involved, I guess it's not race specific.
So yeah, I won't be able to have an opinion on it.
But Attack on Titan.
I like to know what I'm talking about before I to point out an opinion, but go on. Attack
on Titan is, in my opinion, one of the best animes that came out in the past couple of years. And yes, it's not.
The one with the little town, the big dudes that come over the wall and they're like, "Grr, I'm going to eat you."
Yeah, it's not a little town by any stretch of the imagination. It's huge. But
compared to the giant.
The whole point of a lot of the character development in that, and the whole point of the casting for the manga and the anime that were initially made, was that there were so few Asian people left that it was rare to see a person of Orient, as they say in the anime and the manga, that when there is an Asian person, it's like, where did they come from? What are they doing here? They're so mysterious. They're so cool. But then in the Attack on Titan movie, every person's played by an Asian person who's just like, oh my gosh, that person's Asian. Literally, in the movie, they make the remark, because it's in the original source material, that somebody is Asian. And it's the funniest thing. Because I'm like, an Asian person pointing somebody and saying, oh, they're Asian. How did this happen? Where are they from? And I'm like, bruh.
You sit there and look in the mirror like, I'm one of them.
But the whole point is they have Asian actors playing people that are initially of different races, even when the story says it's so rare to have an Asian person that it's a point of note in the series. Yeah. And they don't complain about it.
But the moment you sit there and a white guy happens to do it, and by no means are whites the newest oppressed class. In no way this, and that. It's just there seems to be
a disconnect.
Yeah, there seems to be an awful lot of hate and an awful lot of digging through crap to find that one little kernel. And this kernel is an instance where it's a white individual. You know, you're sitting there and your face is concerning.
You said white person and I got triggered.
Well, if you got triggered now, not after looking at a white person on the screen, then boy.
Oh.
Yeah, but there seems to be a lot of individuals will sit there and go out of the way to try and find instances of racism, sexism, bigotry, and misogyny. Just
completely ignore it when it actually happens.
Yeah, because they're so convinced in their mind that it's just running rampant. I mean, you look at college campuses and you had the statistics. I mean, when I started school, I go to Penco Tech in Bristol. I'm learning a trade. Even there, schools are obligated to disclose any criminal activity, whether that be sexual assault, rape, whether that be murder, especially, that's criminal.
That's a pretty big deal, yeah.
Yeah, killing people regardless is not inherently a good thing.
I'd be inclined to agree.
I would hope so. But yeah, schools are required by law to disclose information on that. You know, it's just the way it is. Also kind of gives the students a little bit of reassurance. So when
I'm sorry to interrupt, but they also have the legal and job responsibility as an educator or as a person who works with children or who works with kids or who works with even young adults. They have to, much like a psychiatrist, much like a pastor, much like anybody who works with people that have issues, like students, they have a legal responsibility to report anything that involves harming oneself or harming another person to the authorities. And if they don't do that, they can get fired and they can get arrested because it's their legal responsibility to protect people.
Exactly. And when you have this, we've talked about this in our own kind of time and with other people. This statistic that's been thrown around so much that people just assume it's fact. The 1 in 4 women on campus are going to be victims of rape or sexual assault. First off, I'm not entirely sure where the statistic came up. I'm not sure if it was just kind of hey, let's pull a social poll from a random college.
Well, let me get this out of the way. The initial poll that was done was a survey that didn't say yes or no. It had people score based on a scale, 1 to 5, of how they felt they experienced a certain behavior. And if anybody polled more than a certain degree of experience, like anything more than absolute 0, which would be in this case be 1, then they would count that as sexual harassment, rape, etc.
Pretty much reading it, because in an instance of the severity of it,
some of the questions included stuff like, has anybody looked at you and made you uncomfortable?
People who are watching, that is not rape, let alone sexual assault. Please.
And all of the questions were loaded. Every single question was more inclined to do what is illegal for a lawyer to do, and which is lead. Leading questions are illegal in the court of law. I don't know why they're legal in a survey like that.
But, you sit there and you have a leading poll like that just gets thrown around. And obviously with these groups that have convinced that rape and sexual assault is so rampant on campus that they'll run with it. And because it's been thrown around so much, just with other issues, we won't get into it today, they've, just by popularity and word of mouth, people assume it's true, which it's not. You can type in on Google right now, my friends, put your fingers on the keyboard, type in FBI, Department of Justice, college statistical rape, or rape and sexual assault statistics.
Or just sexual assault statistics if it triggers you to say rape.
Yeah. Well, we already had a trigger warning, so there it is. And we're saying this stuff just as a means of fact. So the stat is more like
It's 50% safer on campuses.
Yeah, it's more like 1 in 53. Now, I agree, 1 in 53 is still way too high. But
And I would disagree with that even, because that doesn't account for the actual statistics by the government about how many people in comparison to the whole population. It's like 1 in 53 to the negative 4th degree
so what would
is
you
the
say-
percentage of people that are likely to get it.
right,
get sexually
what would you
assaulted.
say on college campuses, what would you say then would be a more accurate representation?
You have less than a millionth of a chance of getting raped.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I guess it's the reason I'm laughing is at how they desperately so want the stat of 1 in 4 to be true. When, first off, it's so detrimental. If 1 in 4, even 1 in 5, even 1 in 6 was true, that would mean that college campuses, on average, are just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than the war-torn Congo.
Yep.
Where there are rape gangs actually going around rounding people up for the intent of inflicting sexual harm.
And that means that we need a patriarchy in place like they have in Saudi Arabia to prevent that many rapes. So you would literally need a patriarchy to prevent that number.
Don't say the P word. Whew.
Speaking of patriarchy, how about that law enforcement?
I wasn't done.
I know, but I'm scared of going on this topic. People are going to attack us.
To round off to pretty much summarize what we were saying with that is 1 in 53 is still awful. It should be 0, but it is light years away from 1 in 4. So I tell everybody, have integrity when it comes to looking at facts and looking at what somebody says. Because regardless if you think a poll looks legitimate, make sure there's sources and there's legitimacy to it, and it's not just I want it to be true, therefore my cognitive dissonance is going to kick in.
Which, if you want the 1 in 4 rape statistic to be true, that says way more about how you embody rape culture than anything else.
Yeah, rape culture implying that we sit there and don't punish rapists.
Rape culture implying people want it to be true.
Yeah, implying there's no laws in place that sit there and put you in jail and sit there and completely ruin a man's life to the point where he can't get a job and he can't do anything and he has to sit there and be labeled as a sex offender even if he gets the accusation of rape and he's found non-guilty. But let's go into law enforcement with that.
Thank you. I am so done with that other topic. I don't want people to crucify me on the internet, Miles. I'm not ready for this.
At the same time, we won't really touch up into that unless something more prevalent kind of comes up that we kind of need to. But I feel like we need to touch up on bases of certain things.
Because that's just about finding statistics. Those statistics can be easily found and proven and disproven by the government. And again, don't try to bring stuff up. Like, if it is counter to an argument just because you think it's counter to an argument, because they may say that doesn't apply to this argument, that's just counting for a single variable in my argument. Therefore, you're proving my point anyway. Like, I know those people that literally go on Google and they'll type in, the antithesis of this argument, and they'll find something that has this big headline that says, this will prove this wrong, and then it just doesn't. It just doesn't.
People actually do that? People type into Google the answer to this argument and this and that?
Yeah, pretty much. And you know they do it because they didn't even know it was in the article.
What the hell? All right.
It's crazy. And sometimes they post satire.
Something today. But before we sit there and wet our panties even more.
Trigger warning.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about a very, very decisive, very heated topic. Won't get heated for us because we've mentioned this on our own times. We've come up to our own conclusions, but we're just going to address it for the people now. Law enforcement. I'm going to say my views on it, and then Phil is going to say his views on it. I've stated before, I am a supporter of cops as individuals.
You're wrong!
Oh, well. You got me. Now, I understand that law enforcement and the way it works needs to change. I understand that meeting quotas for the sake of just going out and meeting quotas isn't inherently the smartest way of doing something, because you're finding a need and a necessity to create criminals or make arrests just because you need to fulfill a certain, quota. And one of my teachers at school actually had a substitute recently, so relevance to what we're saying. He was a cop for around 25 years, and one of the kids mentioned in class, well, what about quotas? And he made a good point. I don't disagree or agree with it, but just to put things in perspective, is they said, what about quotas, and sitting there and just needing to fulfill it? And he said, well, considering that we don't live in a perfect society, I wouldn't consider it a quota. I would consider it doing your job. So you sit there, and if you find instances of people doing something that's illegal, speeding, this, and that, then you're going to be doing your job. Now, all right, in that aspect, I agree. But in terms of quotas, how much is it? Is this just like you need to find one a week? All right, that's easy. Yeah. If you're a cop, you're going to find one crime being done, whether it be speeding or homicide, in a week. But when you get to the point where it's such a high number that you need to go out of your way and sit there and say, oh, golly, this guy has half of a gram of pot on him. I'm going to sit there and say, pot's ruining your life. So in turn, I'm going to ruin your life by putting you in behind bars for 20 years. Or sitting there and pulling somebody aside and giving them a hefty fine because they happen to be going 1 mile above the speed limit. Because unfortunately for them, they were going down a hill, and momentum, your speedometer goes up. But they'll pull you over for that. Anybody who drives, you'll understand you have to take your foot off the accelerator when you're going down a steep hill, or else you're going to go from 60 to 1,000. It's just the way it is. Hills are a mess. But I understand that the law enforcement, the way it operates, needs to change. I don't necessarily have the answer of how. I also don't think that we should necessarily completely dismantle it and replace it, as certain groups, not going to mention any names, want to do, because unless you have an alternative to it and you have a way to, not incite chaos, what can we do to maintain law and order in communities without sitting there and deal with the injustice and the corruption that we have in law enforcement right now?
I believe firmly in a concept known as policing the police. Not in the way that a lot of people are doing that by throwing Molotov cocktails at police officers or trying to destroy their cars. I'm talking about literally having a system in place where people judge the merit of the officer's find, which in this case would probably be a criminal who's gotten kidnapped. Arrested for their crime. You can tell I kind of have disdain for the whole system as it is. But basically, we should have tribunals where people in communities have the ability to judge what the police officers are doing. So if they were to get a person arrested, right, they would have to go to the tribunal first. Say, I arrested a person for this reason. Is what I arrested him for even worthy of being prosecuted? Now, the community could come together and say, in our community, no. Even if it's some large-scale federal thing, we don't believe you should be prosecuting a person for this. And I believe that comes down to ultimately states' rights, which I think you'd like, and the fact that federal rules aren't going to, across the board, help anybody. They're going to set a margin of error, like right above where the lowest common denominator is at, so that there are people, maybe a fraction of a percent of people, that are just getting screwed by a federal law because you can't blanket everybody over a single issue. And to say stuff like the war on drugs is bad, yes, you're getting to that point where I'm at, where you're almost there. You almost have the answer, which is we can't be letting federal laws dictate what communities believe. And in certain cases, it's not hurting anybody. So if we have police officers who are federally, state, community, etc. employed, then the very people who are employing them should have the right to say, I don't think what they did is worthy of prosecution or being a crime. So before they even get tried, before they even lose everything, before they're even accused of a crime, you have to say, we have a belief. The cop has to defend his belief, which is, this person's doing something illegal. Therefore, I should arrest them.
Right.
That's not a good belief. That's not a reason. It's not good to arrest somebody because you think they're doing something illegal. It's good to arrest somebody because you think somebody's getting hurt by something or somebody's hurting someone. And basically what I'm saying is, I don't like the fact that laws paint with a broad stroke.
Yeah.
I think we should look at individual cases, say, okay, as a community, we've gathered and decided that person may have had a little bit of weed, and that's totally okay. They weren't driving stoned. They weren't running over children. They weren't running red lights.
Like a little bag, something you'd store oregano in.
Yeah. And then you have communities where it's like, okay, well, they could get away with horrible things. Yeah. But in our country, we already get away with horrible things because the federal government allows us to. They create tax loopholes and they create things that allow the rich to succeed past what the lower class and middle class can do because they're the government and they're doing it and we don't question it. Right. So if we let the people who are actually in the communities decide what matters to them and don't just say, oh, you're overridden by a federal law, so people that don't know what it's like to live your guys' life can tell you what they believe you shouldn't do. I think we need to have communities look out for communities. And that includes people looking out for their police officers and officers looking out for their people.
That makes a lot of sense, too. I mean, now that you mention it, the crimes that, or the arrests that that police officers are doing, they don't really have anybody above them really kind of saying this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. Because at a federal level, those people that have the power to do something about it are the ones enforcing the law to begin with. So at a community level, yeah, it should be kind of a balance of powers between the two. You keep your job if you protect us in a civil way that actually makes sense, and it's sitting there discriminating against individuals, prosecuting people for meager crimes. Hey, I'm straight edge, you're straight edge. We both believe that pot should be decriminalized. It should be legal. I think it's ridiculous. That's for a whole nother day. We can actually have a whole segment just dedicated to that, but just the principle.
Right now, the balance of power in our country is overwhelmingly federal government up here, states here, and communities down here. But if we were to flip that, on its head, suddenly you've got communities that can govern themselves, and you've got a federal government that will only step in when an abuse of human rights is being committed, or if the community and the state are not taking the steps to ensure that their civilians are doing well. So that way, you've only got a federal government that's protecting the interests of the people instead of a federal government that's ruling the people.
Right.
So if we just flip it on its head, it could be so much better.
I agree 100%. I mean, that's kind of what a republic and just all of that is. The thing that doesn't make sense is with people that are more democratic or more left-leaning want to get rid of federal laws and all this by creating more government and instituting more laws. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, how exactly does that solve the problem? You're trading one villain for another.
Well, that's my belief, though, is that we should trade federal laws for state and community laws, but also for not common sense so much, but communal consensus. So instead of having laws.
Tricky thing to say, common sense, because you kind of have to reinforce and explain to everybody why it's common sense in a way that people would be able to understand.
And that's why I say communal consensus instead of common sense.
Yeah. But, I agree. I remember we kind of had a little, not a back and forth between each other, but with a good buddy of ours, Dennis. Dennis is a little, he's a little more passionate. Love the kid.
I love him. He's
very
great.
Very talented. If you ever get a chance, Dennis Brezniak, he's working with a good buddy of mine, Patrick Wentz. Very talented musician.
I'm going to try to play some of his music soon.
Yeah, as long as you get consent.
Yes.
But they're I don't necessarily want to say, because I'm not speaking for them. They're not, I don't want to say anti-cop. I mean, that's not necessarily wrong, but they have passion about why they're in that position because they see what's going on and they're rightfully outraged, And we mentioned what can we do to maintain law and order without sitting there and just completely getting rid of the one kind of institution that actually is supposed to protect and serve, which right now the slogan doesn't kind of hold up.
Not in New York, it doesn't.
And as a community kind of based thing, that would make a lot of sense. Like I just said a minute ago, you protect your job, or you keep your job as long as you protect us lawfully and in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. And it seems like a pretty simple fix, but unfortunately there's a lot of variables that get involved with it. And, it's not just one particular issue. You have to go to state, federal, you have to go into just how the whole entire system works, how you would do this. I mean, it's tricky, but the whole point of it is to talk about it because the more people get behind an idea, that's how movement starts. And when a movement starts, more and more people that are like-minded, regardless of the topic, there's good movements, there's bad movements. Germany, Hitler, 1940.
More like 1930s, but yeah.
Yeah. But, the best thing to do in topics like this is to sit there and just speak out about it. Don't do it in a way that turns people off. Do it in a way where you can get people to rally behind you.
In other words, discuss it with people first.
Exactly. And even if you come out on opposite ends of the spectrum, as long as you're willing to hear the other person out and look at their side of the argument, you will reach a middle ground. It's undeniable that you will. Unless somebody is so stubborn that they sit there and they just say, oh, I just can't agree with you because you sit there and you're for this and that. It's like,
well, I'm not, but thanks for telling me I am. I guess I didn't know that.
Thanks for assuming what I'm saying, even though it's not what I'm implying at all.
Like how Trump supporters are automatically misogynist because they believe that their economy should be strengthened.
What?
If you support Trump for economic reasons, people will say, you're a racist and a bigot, though, because you support Trump. And people are like, no, I just agree with his economic policies. And people are like, then you're just a misogynist. Like,
the two things aren't related whatsoever. You're trying to equate that every single thing that Trump has done, every single person agrees and is completely on board with every single aspect of as Trump is as a person. And that's the game you want to play. You can say the same thing to Hillary.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, as you said, with a lot of these, a lot of the kind of social justice warriors and a lot of people on the left that are sitting there crying out rape culture, that are crying out patriarchy, are the same people that are supporting somebody who's silenced rape victims. So it's a game you want to play. It goes both ways. Doesn't mean all because you're sitting there and speaking out against one candidate, you're supporting the other. That's not how it works. No!
That triggers Miles. We have found his trigger.
Yeah, my trigger is when you assume, because I completely bash Hillary, because, let's face it, there's a significant amount of things that you can bash Hillary for.
She's got a lot of dirt on her, yeah.
Yeah.
And WikiLeaks is almost entirely devoted to pointing out what Hillary Clinton has done.
Yeah, and that's not saying crap has come out under Trump. That's bad either. And when it does, I will sit there and I will speak on it, because I in no way condone what he says. And the people that are sitting there defending him saying, oh, that's how all guys talk, it's like, I mean, I'll talk about girls to my friends, but I'm not going to sit there and tell them to grab them by the pussy.
Whoa, censorship.
Exact quote. You can't say that.
Okay, I won't censor you this time.
Quote. Yeah, but to assume that, I mean, that's generalizing. That's bad. And the people that are sitting there defending him by that, no, you're making yourself look just as bad as him, because you're basically saying that what he said is completely fine. It's not, you know?
But again, if we're judging people by what they said 10 years ago, and if by supporting their politics, we are, by extension, supporting the things they said 10 years ago, then I'd be saying horrible things about black people as a Hillary Clinton supporter. which I in no way respect or condone that she ever said those things.
Called black super predators. She's called Trump supporters basket of deplorables.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary,
She said the N-word in a negative way.
She called those effing kites. You can fill in the blanks or reverse the words.
Yeah.
She said sands ends. You can't say the word.
Yeah.
But all of this stuff, I mean, it's come out on WikiLeaks. She's called Bernie Sanders supporters, even recently, basement dwellers. I'm like, usually you try to
appeal to the people you're trying to get to vote for you.
Yeah.
She shames them into trying to do it.
And even recently with WikiLeaks is she's basically, I mean, she pretty much balled out Bernie, which is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
But she's also appealed to her, his kind of voter base in such a crap way by basically sitting there and saying nothing but nice things and completely going against everything that she previously said just to appeal to his voters, just to get them to vote for her.
And behind closed doors, she's insulting them, calling them stupid to fall for a populist vote. It's like, you're calling them stupid for wanting somebody who's gonna change things. And honestly, I got on the Bernie train way too late. I ended up liking him after I listened to more than just the Hillary Clinton and Trump campaigns propaganda about him, because turns out he was intending to make some changes that I actually agreed with, and good Lord, nobody in Washington wanted that to happen.
I could understand why Republicans, Democrats, and pretty much nobody in Congress and everybody in the higher-ups are sitting there not supporting Trump, is because he's kind of proven with the same as Bernie. I'll give him respect there. I don't like the guy, but I can credit due where credit's due, is the reason that these people don't support Trump and Bernie is because they know that their entire way of life is going to be changed dramatically if they were to get president. And they are doing everything in their power to rig elections, just completely bash and attack people. You know, it really shows about the state of our political system.
The fact that I have to vote third party now because it's not Trump and Bernie, it's Trump and Hillary. The fact that I have to vote third party is proof that the two-party system is failing us, because one side says, let's rig everything, not count votes for Bernie so that the chosen one may become the leader. And then the other side is saying, let's just let the people decide. And if the people want Trump, then they can have him, but we don't want Trump. And then the people decide it. That's a sign of democracy going too far. And then the side of socialism going too far. It's just like both sides have horrible choices because one let the people decide, one didn't. Whereas if it had been inverse, we would have better candidates.
Dude, if Ted Cruz or Rand Paul were to sit there and get the nomination, I know who I'd vote for.
Me too.
Because they actually represent more of the principles of the Republican Party. To call Trump a Republican, let alone a conservative,
he's moderate.
Yeah.
He's so moderate. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I wanted Rand. I hopped on the Rand Paul train.
Me too.
Way too late. It was a shame. I like his dad a lot more, but, you know, I would have taken him or Ted Cruz over the individuals that we have now. Absolutely.
But it's too late to cry over that. So, any last things you want to say? Wrap up on this law enforcement and now politically based commentary? Because we do have one more topic. I just want to make sure we clear this up first.
Speak out about issues. If you're passionate about something, do so in a way that connects with other people. Have discussions, start a movement, go from there. Because sitting there, posting on blogspot.com or Tumblr, this and that, while actually not doing anything about it, you're only going to get so far. I'm not saying that's a stupid way to do things. I'm just saying if you're that passionate about an issue, go forth. Because if you want your voice to be heard, it will be heard.
And just so you know, I'm not going to source or cite any of the sources from WikiLeaks in our description, because I get this weird feeling that maybe we'll get the ban hammer, maybe we'll lose advertising possibilities.
CNN has quoted, possessing WikiLeaks file is inherently illegal. But the media is allowed to, because we're the ones who are telling you about it. But we, as the citizens, we're not allowed to. So I don't want to mysteriously commit suicide with a bullet wound to the back of my head.
Yeah, I referenced that.
It's really not that difficult. Just type in WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
So do it.
Do that so we don't have to.
If the Clinton campaign wants to sit there and, kill us.
Call you stupid and then kill us.
That's what I had to say to you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. So on to a more lighthearted topic.
Is very, very interesting. Kind of softer.
Creamier.
Yeah. Cleaner. More blood absorbing than our previous topics.
Mm-hmm.
The pink tax.
Which I think everybody's going to know where you stand on that, but I would also like to make a couple of comments on it. I just want to hear what you say.
What is that implying?
Well, people are going to pigeonhole you and shoehorn you into a certain category based on who you talk about and who you talk like and what you said you are, so...
Yeah. So, we touched up on this during our break, but Phil, lead us in.
I don't inherently believe that a pink tax is real, and if it is, it's not for the reason you think.
Go for it.
It's not for the reasons that people would think it is. I mean, I've seen firsthand a lot of the documentation that people have on the pink tax, and more often than not, it doesn't account for any variables at all. It doesn't account for anything.
It doesn't account for the materials going in for the product. Guys, have you ever used a woman's razor?
Yes.
It is insane.
It single-handedly started me shaving again, because I thought all razors were disgustingly painful, brittle, sharp, but not in a good way, like blunt.
I use a woman's razor when I'm sitting there shaving the little bit of hair that I do get. I've never gotten razor burn. I've sat there, I feel like a baby. I sit there and it has different lotions, cocoa butter. Sit there, the blades are finer, a lot smoother. The overall just feel is nicer, more curved, more rounded. It's not angular, just kind of robust put together. So you sit there and you think to yourself, took a lot more materials to make this. There's a lot finer materials to make this.
Higher quality build.
Yeah. There's more of a demand. So you kind of put two and two together and you're like, all right, a woman's razor is more expensive than a man's.
And it would be ridiculous to try to sell women on the cheaper razors, because if they were sold what men are sold at the lowest echelon of the income curve, then women would automatically stop shaving. Automatically. They'd be like, the people that buy cheap razors, they'd be like, nope, not doing it anymore. This stuff is crap. It hurts. It's painful. Why would we shave? Suddenly, you'd see a whole revolution against shaving. But you know what? They don't sell women cheap razors. And their less expensive razors are still higher quality than a lot of mid-range male razors, because women just demand higher quality. They have a higher area of concentrated hair to cover. So you get a better shave, more soft, more area covered, which means it's quicker. Guys, if you had to use a men's razor, you'd probably do what I did and stop using them for a very long time. I had a straight beard until I discovered that women's razors were better. And you know what?
It's not, you don't have to be embarrassed either. Sit there, just if anybody gives you crap for sitting there using a woman's razor, just be like, try it. You won't go back.
And it's less expensive than razors of the same quality on men's side that are still smaller and have less surface area to cover per second.
Exactly.
But I do use like Dollar Shave Club. I know a lot of people that use Harry's razors. And for about the price of a good women's razor.
I mean, you're getting kind of a little bit more bang for your buck, but it still adds up.
Yeah.
It's not like you're sitting there buying dollar store razors. Whoa. Did my camera just go out?
Mills went dark. But you're alive now. But yeah, it's like, it's a build quality thing. They just don't sell women super stupid cheap razors because they're bad. They almost operate at a loss on the pink razors that are low quality. So what is the pink tax? Now, there is one thing I will establish is probably taxed because it's pink, which is tampons, because it's gender specific. You only have half of the potential market for tampons that you would have on a razor or any other unisex item. So tampons have half of the market penetration that anything else could possibly reach. They have a lot of material packed into a very small, dense area that's potentially absorbent, potentially less absorbent. You've got to have things that are accounted for. You've got to have things like the heavy flow, the medium flow, the low flow, all those things. And that's a range of products that are attributed to multiple different types of people. So you've got a lot of R&D going into it. You've got a lot of materials that you have to pack tightly. You've got to do a lot of research to understand what's most effective and what's not going to hurt somebody. So
imply that it's just a bunch of guys in a factory sitting there getting cotton, stringing it together, and then just selling it and just taxing the hell out of it. That's ignorance on your part.
If anything, one like equals one prayer for all the sponges that were sacrificed going into tampons. I don't know how they work. I don't know anything about tampons. I'm a dude. Just kidding. We've all had to use them. For bloody noses.
I know what you mean. You sit there and sit there. Yeah, I can understand why it would be great for stopping a bloody nose. I've never done it. Last time I got a bloody nose, jinxing myself, was like 10 years ago. So,
whoa.
You start, I don't get bloody noses. But, yeah, if you understand why it's taxed and you look more into it instead of assuming that it's patriarchy, you're going to make yourself look a little less stupid. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
This is probably my moral of the story. If you are going to say something and make a point, make sure you understand the principle to your point. The facts going behind it. Is there any validity? If you're going to sit there and call something racist, bigoted, sexist, patriarchy, make sure you understand, write it on a piece of paper and think, why is this racist? Why is this sexist? Otherwise, you're just spouting buzzwords, And and we mentioned it in our first episode. You can't assume that everybody, we're not all telepathically connected. You can't assume that everybody knows what you're thinking. So say it at a second grade level. Sit there and just be like, this is racist. Why? Let me explain it to you. Therefore, the other person can hear your side of the argument instead of just being like, are you kidding me? So, pink tax. Yeah.
So, that was a beautifully concluded argument, I think.
Yeah, it was very clean. There wasn't any spillage anywhere.
Based on the flow of ideas, I don't think that it had a lot to put up with.
This topic's a light flow.
When you make period jokes, I
don't make period jokes.
Period. There had to be one bad pun. The last episode had none. We needed a bad pun.
Yeah.
The first episode we did, that had a bad pun.
Dude, it was just awful.
And the K, potassium. And you just stopped. It was like, Yes, bad puns are lovely. So, with that, we're going to have to go into our music segment for this episode, which is going to be provided by my friend, Dennis.
D-Menace?
D-Menace. Dennis, the guy you were talking about earlier in the episode. I decided to hit him up on Facebook and say, hey, so we're going to discuss one of your songs. We're going to introduce it and then have our opinions on it afterwards. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I would love to hear some commentary and feedback about it. So with that, I'm also going to link to his Bandcamp probably and his Facebook for sure.
I would say I don't know if they have a Bandcamp. Definitely his Facebook,
Yeah.
The kid's passionate about what he says. The kid's just a great individual.
Mhm.
So hit him up. Listen to his music.
Absolutely.
They've got some nice stuff coming out. You'll like it.
Oh yeah, you will.
And a little spoiler warning for our 1, potentially 2 viewers, if any, that happen to actually watch this, or to the future selves of people that look back and want to watch a cringe fest. We have some material coming out too, Phil and I.
Yeah.
Look, get ready. December, you're gonna get slammed with some nice tunes.
Slammed with probably something close to or akin to prog death metal.
We are, by definition, we are technical, progressive, blackened death metal with core influence and potentially jazzy stuff.
Yeah. So I think you guys are going to like it. I scream, Mills plays drums, and we have a couple of good friends who work with us on writing everything.
We suck.
Oh yeah, we're horrible.
Everybody in the band sucks.
So coming up is a song called Brains by D-Menace, and it's going to be the new version. He did a demo in my studio a while back, and then he came back and was like, look, I need to do a new version because I got better, I got more passionate, I got more excited. So the version that's currently out is the old single version, but this is the exclusive place to find it for the time being, the new version. So we're going to roll that. I'm going to send it to Miles. He's going to have some feedback on it, and then we will jam. Or rather, we'll just talk about how it was, and then we'll lead this episode to an end. So, music segment away!
Hey man, how's it going? You been doing well?
I'm pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing tonight?
I'm thinking about making this delicious roast, you know, because I'm real hungry and whatnot. It's gonna be good.
Hey, what kind of roast are you doing? Are you doing it like Asian style or Mexican style?
No, fuck that. I'm an Italian man myself. I mean, I love Italian food, you know, oregano, all that kind of stuff.
Nice mozzarella?
Shit, yeah, mozzarella.
You ever have it in the soup?
Yeah, sometimes, you know, on occasion. It's pretty good.
You know what? I put it in with some cauliflower, some green beans, some potatoes. That's this real starchy effect. Oh, but if you're ever gonna do Asian, note, never mix it with tofu. Too big of a conflict.
I'll keep that in mind for sure, man. It's gonna be delicious, dude.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
I masterfully craft catastrophes so dastardly the cops is after me. I smash MCs so fantastically they collapse and bleed, then I dash and flee. I used to be clean and I relapsed on speed, which led to coke, shrooms, and a dash of weed. Yeah, I'm psychotic, name a mental illness, and I got it. I carve pentagrams in my eye sockets, then I puke up dry vomit. I'm back at it, an asthmatic crack addict, trying to fuel this habit. Yeah, well I've had it, cause when I talk to God all I hear is black static. A mental patient still waiting for Satan, so I can murder him and make myself the replacement. Dog, you better face it, you know I don't fake shit. This is just who I am, and I'm about to go ape shit. Pretend I'm Slim Shady, take a ride to my basement. Best brain that I tasted. Best brain that I tasted. Best brain that I tasted.
Cook it up fresh, not a scrap to be wasted.
Best brain that I tasted.
And I'll eat yours too, so just
Best brain that I tasted.
cook it up fresh, not a scrap to be wasted.
Best brain that I tasted.
And I'll eat yours too, so just
So here I am again, chasing these monsters. They're only in my head, but they're making me bonkers. I tell them to be quiet, but they keep talking non-stop. But I'm acting like there's nothing wrong, I deserve an Oscar. I'm getting hungry, but not for super pasta. There's only craniums on this maniac's roster. I slurp them up with a plate of nachos, then throw the rest back in your head like, ha ha, gotcha. Yeah, I'm crazy, but I haven't always been this way. Everybody in my family thinks I've been okay, cause I'm too scared to bring them all over for dinner, hey? Cause if they saw what I was like, then I get sent away. So I'll just keep being a lunatic that's in dismay. And I'm the biggest fucking villain in this business, bae. I really wish I didn't fucking have to live this way, but sanity's a real fucking bitch, they say. Best brain that I tasted.
cook it up fresh, not a scrap to be wasted.
Best brain that I tasted.
And I'll eat yours too, so just
Best brain that
I cut him open. You know, I punctured him in the back of the skull, took his cerebellum out, fried it up, you know, with some breadcrumbs.
Yeah, it goes great fried, you know. Have you ever had brainstem fries? Just substitute French fries.
Dude, I need to try that.
But you gotta deep fry them. Oven cooked, they turn out dry as hell.
I mean, this isn't about counting calories, absolutely. You know, you deep fry it, that's fine. Like,
this is a special treat.
It's a special treat, you know, you don't count calories. When you eat someone's brain.
Oh, dude, have you ever substituted ground beef for a frontal lobe in a taco?
I have not, dude. Seriously, you are coming up with some wonderful ideas today. This one, my neighbor's been annoying me lately. I might have to do that with his brain.
Point to even write this verse, cause by the time you hear it you'll probably be in a hearse as they're preparing to put your body down in the dirt. Was it a painful death? No, it didn't hurt. They don't know that you're in your coffin but you're still alive, and all the horrors that you witness, man, you can't describe. And you don't wanna die but you just really can't decide if you should try to leave this grave and try to fucking hide. But now the funeral is over, everybody's gone. You're feeling sick and you know it ain't gonna be that long. Plus you don't know if you can even really be that strong. You're having post-traumatic stress like you're in Vietnam. But then you finally decide to fucking leave this bitch. You manage to get out the coffin, you don't even twitch. But then you notice me there standing and I got a blade. I leave my lunch and throw the remains right back in the grave.
Best brain that I tasted. Cook it up fresh, not a scrap to be wasted. Best brain that I tasted. I'll eat yours too, so just best brain that I tasted. Cook it up fresh, not a scrap to be wasted. Best brain that I tasted. I'll eat yours too, so just
zombie parades are the shit. You could go around eating everyone's brain just fucking raw, and nobody fucking notices because they're it's part of the zombie act.
Dude, that sounds like freaking heaven, man. You gotta let me know when the next one is.
Hey, yo, boys, you cooking in here?
We're cooking with gas, dude. Dude, we have so much brains today, we're not gonna eat all of these.
Oh, yo, this dude, he helped me. He helped me make my strings out of brain.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard. The hard part for placing them every time they say
it has this real rubbery sound to it, you know.
I can imagine, but you know, it's worth it. It has a very authentic sound.
It very works well with the black metal sound.
Oh, for sure. You know, what
true vault rap rock.
Damn straight.
man, you can just cook them up.
You eat them, and yeah, you know, it's like for dessert. You know, you just put some sugar on it, whatever, you know, go to bed.
So, Miles, how was that song? I don't know if you're a huge fan of rap or anything. I know I am, but I think Dennis does a really good job at it. And I think Pat, who is his guy who did all the instrumentals and did some of the chorus vocals, I think that they work really well as a team and make some really interesting stuff that's completely different than other rap and stuff that's out there. And I've also never heard rap that used spring reverb on the main vocals. It definitely made him sound like he was in a really dark place in the 50s.
Well, considering that Heath's brains, well, I gotta say, best brains I've ever tasted. So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So what did you think of it?
I went into it already knowing that I'm going to be impressed, but you know, I hear the kind of stuff that these two put out, and it's just, I always think, man, how can it get better than this? And my expectations are just blown away every single time.
Yeah.
I mean, Pat alone with instrumentals, insane.
Absolutely.
You know, Dennis's creativity when it comes to just the vocalization and how he puts forth what is in his mind, great.
Absolutely
Mad
true.
respect to these dudes. You know, once they put all their stuff out, like, share. If I didn't say it before, share. Just do what you can. You know, local musicians in the area. It's what we love. It's what we love doing.
Yeah.
You know, give them a view, give them a like, give them a shout out.
All links in the description. That was a debut, though. I don't know if you can find that particular version of that song anywhere else.
Yeah.
For now.
But you will in time. You know, this extremely popular One Potential Listener podcast is currently the exclusive place to find it. So,
Oh, yeah?
what a great way to get people to do something.
Local rap music.
Local
Are we
rap
cool
music-
now? Are we hip to what the kids like?
Local rap music. How do we get it out into the open? I have an idea. Let's put it on a very obscure podcast. People will surely tune in then.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we're going to do a quick little couple-minute recap of all the topics that we covered. Just 1 or 2 sentence coverage.
Mulan.
Mulan, I mean...
Hysteria.
Yeah. It's Mulan. It's great that they're casting all indigenous folks in that movie. All because somebody cast somebody of a different color in a different slot doesn't mean racism or sexism or anything. It's just casting choices.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be automatically offensive just because it's somebody that you don't like the skin color of for that particular role.
Which, on its own, is racist. Next topic.
Law enforcement and how it should be dealt with, which is to say, firmly and with a swift hand.
Firmly grasp it, yeah. Law enforcement. Cops, just like politicians for the most part, they are good individuals misguided, and especially when they're misguided by a system that isn't inherently the most moral and functional. What we do, it's got to be an issue of community regulation, community insight, making sure that the people that are supposed to protect and serve them are doing their job in a way that benefits everybody.
Mm-hmm. And with that note, the way I'd put it is the people enforcing the laws should also have the laws being enforced by the people themselves.
As somebody that is supposed to uphold the law more than the average citizen, you should be doing just that.
But the citizens should have the right to tell you when you're not.
Exactly.
Because you work for us and we work for you. That's what happens.
Vaginas. No, the pink tax.
Yeah, I mean, close enough. I think it's thoroughly debunked by this point by anybody who's researched materials and processing or R&D or product at all. But we just bring a common sense thread to it. You know, there's tons of information out there. I didn't look anything up for this episode. I'm so sorry. But again,
we can put links in the description after every episode for particular topics instead of sitting there just being like, that's wrong. It's like, nope. There's the facts.
Yep. So if you want to debate that, if you feel like it can be debated, we'd really like to hear it. Because if there is any form of inequality going on besides just the amount of money proportionally put into a system versus the amount of money being reaped by the people, you know, then we would love to hear it so we can bring it out into the limelight and tell people this is unfair and prejudiced. So let's fight it together.
That's the way Phil and I are. That's Phil and Mills in a nutshell. We want to fight racism, sexism, bigotry, discrimination. But until there's an actual instance, we're not going to make something up. We want to fight the actual instances of those things. And we will do everything in our power to fight it with you. We don't care where you're from, your background, your skin color, your sex, whatever one of the 713 genders you happen to be.
Gender.
We fight bad stuff with you.
There are only as many genders as there are co-hosts of this podcast.
I guess. And with that, we're off.
Have a great week, everybody. This is Phil and Mills, and we're gone.
Or don't. We don't care.
I care. Mills doesn't. He's conservative.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.